name is Edward Brian McNaught. I went to Blairs in 1962, having been in Langbank from 1961. We were the first group to go to Langbank, and then half of us went from there up to Blairs. I was there until 1967, when I was sent to Spain for 6 years in Spain, and then came back to Glasgow, and was in Glasgow for 6 years, and then I was appointed to Blairs to be on the staff, and was on the staff from 1979 till Blairs closed in 1986.
Thank you. And my name's George Houston. I am a former pupil. I was in Blairs from 1981 till 1986 when it closed, same as yourself.
Yes.
And have the...
It wasn't my fault.
Keys up. And just for the record, I will be forever grateful for the advice you gave me to drop my higher Latin so that I could focus on higher maths and turn a 36% prelim result into a B in my maths higher. Yes. And today is the 28th of January 2023, and we're here in the parish house of Holy Cross in Cross Hill, with thanks to Monsignor Bradley for allowing us to use his facility. So this will be quite possibly a tale of two halves, I suppose, given that you keep two sides of the coin, and possibly one of the more unique interviews we'll have, I suspect. So I guess natural to start back when you went to Blairs in 1962. What was the process of you ending up in Blairs in the first place?
The process of ending up in Blairs was I was too tall to stay on in Langbank. After a year, they decided that they would send half of us. There was about 63, 64 boys went to Langbank in 1961 to start Langbank. We were divided into St Andrews and St Margaret's forms. And at the end of first year, they said, well, 32 of you are going to Blairs. And of course, we went, well, we thought we were going to Blairs at the beginning. We were told, well, you're going to Langbank. So anyway, we went up to Blairs, and it was a complete shock. I think the thing that stuck in my mind was when we arrived in Blairs, the first thing we got was, in inverted commas, tea, which was an ice lolly. I went, gosh, is this what we've come to now, you know? We were the forum. We were joined by a few others, guys like Aldo Angelo Santo joined us, Jimmy Morris joined us. The two of them are celebrating their Golden Jubilees this year. Dan Hart became our form master, a very small form, and we tried to settle into this place which was full of folk older than us, who more or less ran the place. The decano and the subdecano and the censors were sort of gods. And then you had this other group who were in fourth year, who were the prefects. And the whole place was run by prefects and censors, and anything you did wrong, like coming in with dirty shoes, was another you were reported to. And at the end of a week, Davy Brown came in and read out all your misdemeanours in front of everybody. And you suddenly wondered, what was this about? And then you suddenly discovered at the end of the first year there that your order in the forum didn't depend on what you got for your educational progress. It was cut by sort of taking off how many faults you had. So you could have, be sort of fourth in the form when you added up all your marks, and suddenly you discovered you were 12th in the form when they took off all your faults, which was a strange way of working out, your place in the world,
Yeah, and I guess that's what the next question is: how on earth did you stay then after that culture shock?
It was a shock. It really was a shock that you went there. The first Christmas there was, you weren't getting home. You had to stay there for Christmas Day. You got home on Boxing Day. And Christmas dinner was just Christmas dinner, but you got a bottle of lemonade put on the table, and that was it. The food was strange. Things like rat pie.
This is a recurring theme.
Yeah, rat pie, Irish jock, porridge that you cut. Cornflakes, I think, was very enjoyable. Tea with milk and sugar already in it. It really was a strange place.
And we've had reports of pieces in cornflakes.
Oh yes, definitely. They were wonderful. I came home and actually made a piece of cornflakes, and my mother looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, This is actually some of the best stuff you get in Blairs." That's strange.
Who was the rector when you
The rector when I arrived was Frank Thompson. He was the rector, just giant of a man. He was the rector. He was very, very nice, but he sort of frightened you a bit, A couple of times during the, I recall things that, in church in the morning, he gave you a talk a couple of times a week, just a few thoughts, And I remember once he turned around and said, "And whose feast is it today?" I think it was March or something. I said, and it was St. David's Day. That's the only thing I remember ever getting right, But he was there, and he was an imposing figure,
A scary figure?
I suppose at the age of 12, 13, he would have been a scary figure, yes,
Did that change as time went on with other rectors?
It did a bit. I remember later on in my I think it was my fourth year, one of my relations had died. My aunt, my mother's aunt, who lived with us, had died suddenly, and Bishop Thompson was being consecrated as bishop in Motherwell, and the funeral was in Motherwell. So there was a number of students went down to his consecration, and he allowed me to go down as well, to be able to go to the funeral. And I thought, that sort of changed the impression that we had of him.
Yeah, nice touch. And thinking about the other profs at that time, are there any that stick out for you in terms of making an impression?
Yes, Romeo Coya. Romeo with his English teaching of at Pendlebury. That sticks out amazingly. He was such a nice character as well. Tom Mannion, who got us somehow through O-level Greek, which we relied on later on in Spain. Myself, Hugh Lowry, and George Burns, we were the sort of the three Blairentians that ended in Spain, and we were joined by a guy called Tony Coyle. When it came to biblical Greek, we went up to see the prof, and we said, we all have O-level Greek. He went, you have? Yeah. Yes, we have O-level Greek. Could we be excused class? He said, all right. And he pointed to a Bible and said, read. So we read the Greek passages. Translate.
Savage.
Savage, absolutely. I don't think you realised that it was Greek on that page and it was Latin on that page. So we
two chances.
We managed to translate it. So we were sort of told, okay, you don't have to come to class. So that's one of the great things of Blairs. The O-level Greek saved us 4 months of biblical Greek.
And who was your form master?
Dan Hart. Dan Hart was a very good form master. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he sort of took on 32 guys and ended up with 67 by the time we got to third year. And by the time we got to sixth year, there were 32 of us. You know, so he always had a massive part of the Blairs population under his care, you know. So,
and in terms of the camaraderie in your form group, you know, what strikes you about that in terms of your memories of the form group? That, you know, it's such a big group. I guess.
I think you got on well with almost everybody. You know, memories of different guys, you know, who were there and left, and I say probably your memories are of the guys that were there more towards the end when it was back to a smaller group. In fact, we lost, you know, a couple of them very young. Sort of hit us, Joe Linus and McLean. Yeah, Joe McLean. You know, we lost them when they were very young, and then more recently, Alec McLean, who was there. Guys that left and went on to do other things. When Dennis McBride, who was there in fourth year and left, and joined the Redemptorists, and now sort of runs their publications thing. You know, I met Dennis a few years ago. It was the first time in almost over 35, 40 years, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't think he has great memories of Blairs, which was understandable at the time, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's certainly something that we expect to find in these kind of vocal histories. As you know, it was not always a bed of roses, you know.
No.
Whether as a student or, as we'll go on to speak to, as a prof as well, you know. It wasn't an environment that was always perfect, you know. And I guess that's something which we're all very open to discuss.
I think I don't know off the top of my head. I can think of, you know, I'm sure some of the profs that we had been there for quite a long time. I know, you know, if Peter Moran was there as a prof when I was a student, and still there as a prof when we closed the place. You know.
Yeah.
And then you had others that were profs there and who came back. Like Bill Anderson, who was just a wonderful guy. You would have memories of him when he came back for the last year of Blairs. Memories of him when he was sort of doing the makeup for things like the Pirates of Penzance that we did, and the Gondoliers, which we sang in, and
some very good memories of the shows.
Many years, the shows, you know, some of them were brilliant. Yeah. I was just thinking of Dennis McBride, who did one about John Ogilvie, when he played Captain Dalgetty, who was John Ogilvie in disguise. It was just a short play, you know. He was such a great, inverted comma, actor, He's one of the best actors in the Forum.
Man, Blair certainly provided a great conduit for that kind of individual to really thrive and create an environment for people to perform, and ultimately gain confidence in themselves.
Yes, I think so. You were on your own, in many ways. I mean, you had good days, your bad days, and your days that you wanted to leave, and other days this is great,
Yeah.
But
that was just as a prof as well.
Well,
thinking back, this young, tall laddie comes up the road from Langbank, and you see the size of the place. I was never in Langbank. The size of the place. How did it strike you?
Impressive. It was when you arrive up that driveway and to go around the heart and look up and go, wow, what's this? When you think of Langbank, which was tiny compared to it, a tiny wee church, a lovely wee church, and you arrived there and you were given your some appointment to do things. I was the first bellman, which was ringing the bell when the kids were out playing, to thing, and I got fired from that.
Please tell us why you got fired from being the bellman.
I gave them an extra half-hour playtime. And the reason I did it was I looked up what was on the notice board for the time when we were supposed to come in, and it said, I think it was 4:30. And so I did. We waited till 4:30, rang the bell, everybody came in. I was hauled up, thinking, did you not know that study began at 4:00? No, the notice board says 4:30. That doesn't matter what the notice board says, it was 4:00. You're fired. I said, well, you better change it on the notice board.
That's an injustice.
It was. I really felt, put off.
I feel as if we should acknowledge that that's here and now that was a great injustice.
Yes.
It should be righted.
I think I lasted about 2 months before they fired me.
In terms of the size of the place, it wasn't just the building, we had lots of ground as well and so on.
Yes.
Were you a sportsman? Did you enjoy playing sports in the facilities that we had?
In Langbank, they didn't have any facilities. They'd absolutely nothing. They'd a play park, with swings and things like that, and a shoot. And I remember somebody had found a rugby ball, and my only claim to fame was I could kick the rugby ball over the top of the swing. Very difficult to do when you've no idea how to kick a rugby ball. Yeah. And then we had our football park was a field that had been used by horses, and it had a marsh in the middle of it, and there was one boy, I'm trying to remember his name, Moses. He was nicknamed Moses because one afternoon he led us through this marsh, and we all arrived back in the, after the football game, covered in mud. And Donnie Renfrew came down and sort of said, I hope you enjoyed your game of football, but please do not spend your time going through this bog that you went through. So we were banned from going into the bog.
And I guess when you get to Blairs, you get a little bit more room.
You had a bit more room. You actually had goalposts and things like that.
A big upgrade.
Yeah, a big upgrade. A big upgrade. Different things that happened.
And in terms of your forum, obviously, a very, very big form.
Very big form.
Over the years. And even to end up with 32, you know, and that's quite something. I would have thought historically that's a lot for S6. How would people describe your form? And I'm thinking along the lines of sporty, mischievous, studious. You know, would you identify in any particular way as a form?
I think for some reason we got the vulgar 69 when we all arrived in Blairs, because there was so many of us and so different, you know. I think we were just an ordinary forum. There was, you know, we could put out sort of 4 football teams, you know, which filled up some of the pitches and things like that, you know.
Yeah. And how do you remember the daily routine as a student?
Getting up early. That was, so you got an extra half hour on a Sunday, and that was strange. The meal time, classes, getting off on a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Saturday half days. You could play football or go for a walk. And the number of times we walked around the bounds was, you know, horrendous. And you got out onto the main road and you actually saw cars and people, you know.
Yeah.
That was it. And of course, if you didn't get out, then you had a croc walk.
What was that?
A croc walk. You never was on a croc walk. You all lined up and you started, and you were taken for a walk by either the prefects or the censors, and you were walked into the ground.
Thank goodness that never survived to the 80s.
Yes, you were really.
So you either got out, or you
could have got to Portlethen and back. Yeah, and that was not unusual. If people weren't going out for a walk, they were taken out for a walk. You know.
And I guess you see the sense in that, don't you?
Yeah.
It certainly encouraged you to go on your own, go out on your own
you
terms.
had to go out in threes. If you weren't for a walk, you had to go out in threes. Yes. Other things that you could, flaps.
Flaps?
Yes. What?
Screens.
Oh, sometimes called them
Screens.
screens. Screens. I can't remember the exact name. If you put both hands in your pockets, you got to kick up the backside from anybody who saw you.
All right, and it was legal.
It was illegal. It was illegal to do it.
But it happened anyway.
Well, you just got a kick, and that was it. You know?
And if you think about, just as a student at this point, what would you say was the most enjoyable thing about Blairs?
Most enjoyable single thing, I think, probably just the camaraderie of your forum. You know, we had probably the worst form room of all, because it was the bottom room. It was the boiler room, more or less. As you went into the old building, it was the first room on your right. It was a massive, big place. And then everybody else had rooms upstairs, which were a bit more sort of.
Where were they
homely.
located? Were they located in what we would have called the Rex when we went there in the 80s? The forum rooms.
If you went along past the garages, where the garages were, the first door, you just went in the first door.
Right, so the
And
Rex.
that was it.
That became the boiler plant. No.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was eventually the boiler room.
Yes, well,
right, so you got the worst of rooms.
We got the worst of it. That was
the most lads.
Yeah, that was it. We were in there. And then you had what would have been, the third form would have been the first floor, and then fourth form was the top floor, and the seniors were over in the other part of the building. You know.
What was your favourite subject at Blairs that you studied?
Probably maths. Probably maths,
Aye.
you know. I didn't like languages. I wasn't very good at languages, French or English. I was okay. I think my highers were, for some reason, I got maths, English, I think, and French. Maths, English, and French, I think. Can't remember. And I got O grades and everything else, eventually. You know?
One of the things that I certainly used to always tell my mum and dad when I come home was just the feeling that you got when you were in that church.
Yes.
And particularly, you know, when there were a big ceremony on you, it was, you know, it was a feast day, or you know, you say Christmas Day or whatever, Easter. What were your memories as a lad, you know, from that perspective?
It was surprisingly quite a prayerful place to be in, and I was amazed at the, you know, arriving there. I was banned from singing in Langbank. My voice broke, and that was it. You know, you were told you don't sing. And then I arrived in Blairs, and the choir, the sort of the polyphonic things that they sang were absolutely magnificent. You know, I was so envious of the guys who managed to get into the choir. And it wasn't until I think my fourth year that I eventually got into be able to sing in the choir. But
what section were you in?
Bass.
Funny that.
Yeah. Yes.
And I guess there's lots of really fond memories. I suppose anything particularly you think, I just didn't like that aspect of being a student in Blairs?
I hated having to you know, just be able to play football. I always wanted to play golf.
Aye.
And the third term we had, I think, a golf course. I had memories of one. Mm-hmm. It was actually Peter Barry who used to hit a golf ball around an awful lot. And I eventually managed to be able to take up a golf club and to be able to hit a golf ball around when everybody was down at the other end playing cricket. I could hit a golf ball around, you know.
Did you continue to play golf?
Yeah, except when I went to Spain, because there was no golf courses in Spain at the time. Yeah. But I did set up one in Vocation. Morris Taylor actually mentioned it. I was talking to Morris when he was in Nazareth House, and they remembered me setting up a golf course out at Vocation. And then when I went back onto the staff, I used to get, with the aid of Eric Strachan, I used to set up a 9-hole golf course.
That's right,
in the third term.
Which we all played.
Yeah. So that I enjoyed doing that, you know. Mm-hmm. My golf was great when I was in Blairs. It went downhill after that. I had plenty of time to practice while you lot were studying.
That's true.
Yeah. I remember trying to hit a 9-iron from the very top pitch over onto that single.
Yes.
Where the five-a-side tourney was.
Yeah.
So it was you that was responsible for that hole. That's what you're saying.
That was it. Yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned Eric Strachan there. I think probably everyone that hears the name mentioned, certainly in our era, very fond memories of Eric. He was terrific with us all.
I always think of tatty. Did you have to do tatty?
Oh yeah.
As a student as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. You looked forward to that because you could make up cornflake sandwiches to take with you. And you get tea brought out to you.
Best cup of tea you ever
Yes, it was fantastic,
got. Aye.
But that was the big thing, and you hoped that the potato harvest lasted long enough for it to come back round to year again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And occasionally you stole turnips out of the fields if you were hungry. If you get caught doing it, you were reported. There was always a turnip field or somewhere that was close to the bounds and you could nip in.
Right.
But you were sort of...
High risk strategy.
High risk strategy, yes.
But high reward, if not caught.
A number of guys, were asked to go home for smoking and things like that,
Perish the thought.
Yeah, especially the way I smoked afterwards.
But that's certainly an abiding memory from
a long
my
time.
perspective.
It's a long time since I've done it.
Yeah.
Managed to give it up.
Thank goodness for that. So you leave in 67? Yeah,
I left in 67. Yes.
You're going down that driveway and Blairs is at the back of you. Did you ever envisage going back?
No, never. No, never.
How did it happen? Could you see it coming?
No, I'd been appointed to White Inch. A full-time appointment was handed to me the day I was ordained by Archbishop Scanlon, and I went to White Inch. A couple of months later I was sent to St Teresa's in Postle Park to take the place of a gentleman who had disappeared to Ireland, having been running guns for the IRA. Yeah. And then I was sent to St Joseph's Tollcross. I was there for 2 years, and then I was sent to Denniston. And in the meantime, I'd got involved with the Glasgow Pilgrimage for Handicapped Children, and we were heading out to Lourdes, and the Archbishop had agreed to say Mass for us in St Paul's in Shettleston, and we were getting ready for Mass. And the Archbishop called me over and said, "Brian, a number of your family are teachers." And I said, "Yeah." "Oh, well, you're on the staff in Blairs after the summer." I went, "Uh-huh." He said, "Yeah, uh-huh." And that was it. And then Ben Donaghy phoned and invited me to go up to Blairs to see the place. Mm-hmm. And we had a wee interview, and he said, "I would like you to come, and I'd like you to..." I think Jim Clancy was leaving. He was the one who was leaving that year. And he said, "I want you to teach maths and French and Latin and RE." Okay. I hadn't seen a maths book in 13 years. And my first class was a repeat hire. And I hadn't a clue. Mm-hmm. I just started book one, start with the book and keep going. Luckily, my sister was a maths teacher, so it was phone home, what do I do next? Phone home, what do you do next? Phone home, what do you do next? And that went on. She'd actually sort of informally tutored Archie Brown to do his math course. So after the first year, I went to Tom Winning and said, "Look, I'm teaching maths. I want to do a degree in it, so will you pay for it?" And so I joined the Open University and did the maths course there.
Right.
And then I did, for the final year, I did a thing called inquiry, and it was to look at different areas, philosophy, art, and one of the things I had to do was to do a project at the end, an inquiry. And the inquiry I did was into, don't you probably remember it, when Blairs was supposed to be closing in 1983.
The Dunning, was it Munn Dunning report or something like that?
Yes, and I did an inquiry into how the proposed closure of Blairs in 1983 was carried out, and what had to be done to it. Things like what do we do with the graveyard if Blairs ever closes? How do we get, who do we have to see about moving the remains to different places if Blairs closes? And eventually, the last thing I did was I ended up down in Bon Secours. And by that time, Donny Renfrew was the sort of chaplain there, and there was a questionnaire went out about, should Blairs remain open, should Blairs close, the pros and cons. And unfortunately, there were many pros at closing and very little against closing it. So I said, you can't send that out. You've got to balance it so that, people have a proper choice. And then the decision was made, and I actually got a phone call to say Blairs is staying open. I was recuperating at home. And that was it. Blairs remained open. Then suddenly, 2 years later, Blairs closed.
And given, that inside track, I guess, that you had, was that then a real shock to you, or could you see it coming?
Could see it coming, yeah. Could see it coming.
Did you feel it was right?
I think, yes, it was. That education had changed so much. When Blairs opened, in fact, definitely when Blairs opened, even in our time, a lot of the guys would have left school at 14 and 15. And yet in Blairs, the opportunity to go on and get their hires and, actually go out and choose what they wanted to do. The subjects that were on offer in schools were wider then in Blairs than in an ordinary school. By the time we were on the staff, the opportunities were much wider in ordinary schools than we had in Blairs. Although, I must say, looking at the staff in Blairs, when it closed, everybody who taught there was teaching subjects that they actually knew about. Whereas originally you were sent to Blairs and you just hadn't a clue what you were
given a list of subjects, that's what you're teaching.
Yeah. I mean, every subject had somebody with at least a degree in that subject, except Spanish.
And as you travelled back up, late 70s to go on the staff, I guess in your own mind you had an expectation of what it would be like to be on the staff at Blairs. Was it different to what you expected?
Yeah, but you're supposed to, it was completely different. And as a student, we never saw the staff, apart from class time, or your form master. You didn't have anything to do with some staff at all. In the whole 5 years that we were there was some of the staff. I don't think I ever had Ben Dunnicky for any subject. Dick Morris, I never was taught by. When you went back onto the staff, every member of staff had something to do every day, from either getting them up in the morning, doing the morning prayer, supervising meals, checking the showers at night when they were going in and out. You know, you were involved from morning till night.
Yeah, we certainly we'd certainly say it was very much.
Would the staff have viewed any of those tasks from their perspective as being better or worse? Were there some things that you really just didn't want to do versus, or is it all just it was time?
Well, you just had to do them. You know, Blairs had changed so much. In some ways, it was better. You did have supervision. You got to know the students much more. I mean, every member of staff was known to the students and were involved. At mealtime, oh boy, going back to our day, I mean, mathematically it was impossible. You divide, everything had to be divided by 7. How do you divide a rectangle into 7 equal parts? It's impossible. It could be done. Yes, what you did was you divided it into 6, and you took 1/6 out, and that went to 1, 2, 3. What was the name? There was the divider, subdivider, subscribe. Subscribe got a 1/6. You flattened it out again, especially with the Irish stew. You flattened it out again, divided it into 6. Another one. T-man. Flattened it out again, divided it into 6. Second lowest, and the next one lowest. Flattened it out again, divided it in half, and that was the divider and subdivider. That was it.
Everyone should have been a maths genius, really, shouldn't they?
You know, but that's the way they did it. It was as simple as that. You know.
Yeah.
So this guy's sitting with a big huge pile of food, and we have a wee bit like that, you know. Oh. But that was the way it was done.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, in the 80s, you know, the staff we had, certainly we felt they were all very well suited to us. I think I felt as if there was a real care that there was for us, and we used to always wonder what the hell goes on when they go upstairs and they go into their own, you know, you had a big kind of a prof's room right at the end of the corridor, didn't you?
You don't want to know.
Did you spend much time in that? Did you all get together?
Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually for the Muppets. Yes, yeah.
Was that a TV show, or was that another name for bishops?
That was Oh, listen! Don't go there. Don't go there. No, the Muppets became very, very popular.
Yeah.
You go up and sort of light a fire, and you know there's a beautiful big fireplace there, and you sort of sat around semicircle, and those were the you know sort of relaxation. You know, guys would unwind. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And boy, you must have needed it as well.
Yeah, and you know, other days you didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I'm quite sure. Quite sure.
Dummy meetings and things like that, which you did not want to be there at all. It was not a pleasant time.
Yeah, very difficult.
Yeah.
And you've seen both sides of the Dobby, I suppose.
Yes,
you know, your pals, you know,
yes.
as a student and then as a prof, having to contribute to the decisions.
Yes. Well, as senior housemaster, you had to go through all the guys. You know, you had to be prepared in what you were saying, whether they were to go forward or back. They were very difficult decisions to make, you know.
Heartbreaking.
Yes.
All round.
All round,
Yeah.
all round, yeah.
Were there any, if I may ask, any in the staff that you then became really good friends with, you know, that you had enduring friendships with?
I think so, yeah. Actually, at the moment, I'm not living with, but myself and Michael Woodford. We're in St Gabriel's together. And although I'm not there tomorrow, I'm at the Nazareth House tomorrow.
Right.
So
and
Michael, when I retired and I went home, he was just very supportive. I just got there and joined him for Mass. He said, great, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and we've lost a few as well, obviously, too.
Yes.
Unfortunately, God rest them. And I always remember in that corridor, there was wee Gus, and you went through the door. Was it Bob Healy?
Bob Healy was at
in
the far
left.
end. At the far end.
And then, oh right, he was at the far end, so were you before Bob Healy's?
Yeah, I was before the rector.
That's right. Yeah.
Hugh Lowry was the one before that.
Yeah.
So it was like after you went through John Angus MacDonald was in the corner,
Right,
and then there was Hugh Lowry, myself, and Keith, then David Traynor,
David Traynor, yeah, of course, yeah.
Bob Hewley, Paddy Hennessy, Keith's bedroom.
Aye. Michael Johnson.
Was next
Michael
to
Johnson
Paddy.
down that way as well.
He was next door to Paddy.
Michael Johnson,
Aye.
Keith's bedroom, and then there was bedrooms, 2 bedrooms.
That's
there.
right, aye.
Then you turned the corner, and it was Bob Hill was there.
Pondy, Stephen Robson.
Steve Robson was in that one.
The reason that interests me is when we went...
Michael Johnson's bedroom was next to the prof's.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
right at the end
Sort
of the
of
corridor, aye.
Staff room.
Aye.
The wee staff room for.
Aye. The reason that interests me is when I went to, so we were there, we went up in 81. By the time, so you didn't really go into the prof's corridors at that time.
No.
By the time 85, 86 came, it was we were far more, maybe it's because we were seniors, maybe, I don't know, but you were interacting an awful lot more with the profs on that level.
Yeah.
And I found that quite an interesting change. And I'm not sure if that was an active decision or it was just something that naturally happened.
It just naturally happened. I think probably when Keith O'Brien was, after the sort of 83 decision to stay open, the whole place opened up a bit. And then John McIntyre, we then knew in November, before Blairs closed, we knew that it was closing before it was announced, which was surprising because Keith had been appointed Archbishop in the August. He was consecrated Archbishop, and suddenly he came up and said, we're closing. The 2 archbishops came up, and that was a shock, considering all the work that he had done to sort of keep it open. Then suddenly to say, you're closing it summer, you're closing in June.
Was there anger?
Shock. Yeah. And how do we keep going?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, because you had a whole group of students to get through their exams and so on.
We've got to make sure these guys, especially the guys in 4th year, get a chance to do mostly the row grades, and then the guys who are in 5th year and 6th year get a chance to do the hires and get them through. And then, of course, the year before we'd had God, I can't even remember his name. The headmaster from Holyrood had come up, and he'd done a.
That's the guy I'm thinking of. What was his name? Dunning. Was that name Dunning seems to have come back in my memory, but I remember that happening as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
He came up and had done a sort of critique of the teaching staff, and when the report came out, we were really annoyed because he classified us as well-meaning amateurs. We were furious because we went through every subject, and Bob Healy had his degree in history, John McIntyre had a degree in classics, Peter Moran
wrote the books.
Wrote the books, exactly. Bob Hill had his BSc, Steve Robson had a BSc,
You had done
had a BA,
supplementary,
Paddy Hennessy was doing a BA,
I've never heard that story, that's what the conclusion was. Well-meaning amateurs, my goodness.
The reason being, of course, we hadn't done teacher training, which is 1 year. And yet the number of guys who left, and went into teaching. And
very interesting that you mentioned that you'd never done teacher training. And the thing that's always struck me, certainly as I got older and I became a parent myself, is you'd never done parental training either.
Oh.
And you've got this squad of adolescent lads and having to deal with that.
Yeah.
How on earth do you get your head around that? Quite incredible.
You don't. You just keep going.
Yeah.
You keep going and doing it,
And I think that's the great unmeasurable.
Yeah. I think actually it was quite funny. Gus McLean was the one who did the distribution of duties every so often. He did the sort of plan that we worked on, who was doing sort of getting folk up in the morning, who was doing this, that, and the next thing. And it changed every week. So
that's right.
You always had something different to do, and it was spread throughout the whole staff.
And I seem to remember you were one of the less aggressive bell ringers in the morning. Oh no! I think the last year when we only two guys in sixth year. That's right. It was Jerry McFarland and Martin Kane.
Martin Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went out one day. I was going round waking everybody up and thinking. Eventually got back to Jerry McFarland. He's still lying in his bed, face down. And bell right above his head. It went ding 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 ding. He went, Jesus Christ! And I said, no, Father McNaught, get you.
Very good. And it was wee Gus that did all those rotas and so on. Didn't know that at all. No, I had no idea that
the rotas.
That was part of his role.
Yeah. He was also very good for the staff. He used to occasionally have rather nice meals set up, which was good.
He taught us how to make a good spaghetti bolognese.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Quite a team.
Yeah, I think they were a good team.
And how much interaction was there with the nuns and the sisters?
Apart from doing mass for them in the morning, it was very little. Mm-hmm. Well, of course they left the year before Blairs closed, and Sheila took over.
Yeah.
I think
if you were to compare the two experiences, what was more enjoyable, being a student or being a prof?
Being a prof was more enjoyable. The company of the priest was phenomenal, and we could sit down and relax, and we got to relax together, you know. And amazing, you know, especially when Bill Anderson came back, and sort of coming back on staff, and having Peter Moran there. It's a completely different relationship with him, and you found out so much more about him. He was such an amazing character, very humble man in many ways.
Yeah.
I remember when Archie Brown left, it was myself and Joe Brannigan were doing maths.
That's right. Yeah.
And Peter agreed to take on a maths class. Now you can imagine him coming to me and asking me, what do I teach? And I said, what do you want to do? Do you want to do anything terribly complicated? He said, no. I said, well, try first year. You know, first year. If you can cover first year, that would be great. Or you sort of half first year and half second year, you know. But imagine a guy who taught you coming and asking you, what do I do? You know?
That's a table turner, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and he really was good. And then the last year that we were there, we had to do, O levels were finishing, and it was O grades that were starting.
Right.
And the teachers were on strike. They were not going to do a new course. So we ended up, Joe Brannigan and I had to do a new course. We didn't have to do the sort of, there was an ordinary, and then there was an intermediate, and then there was a...
Yeah, that's right, kind of a standard grade.
Yeah, standard grade. So we didn't have to do the bottom one, but we had to do the other two. And then we had to send them into Aberdeen, to Grampian region. And they sent them round all the schools. It was stuff that was done in Blairs. Yeah.
See, these well-meaning amateurs, honestly.
Well-meaning amateurs did the course for them, you know.
There's a story in itself, isn't it?
It was the last year of Keith O'Brien being there, and he told us we had to do it. So we had to sit down and work out the courses and how they linked up with what we had, you know. And you had to do everything, including, you know, examples for every different stage. It was a major thing to do.
When you look back again, two perspectives, I guess. Did Blairs meet its purpose for you?
For me,
yeah.
In this, as a student, yes, probably yes. And hopefully that it met the purpose when I went back on the staff. But I could see that it was a very limited education compared to what was outside, and I think we had to...
Yeah, the world was moving on, wasn't it?
It moved on from it.
The world was moving on, we were becoming fewer.
Yeah.
And frankly, if it were to be opened up any more in terms of the choice of subjects, the pressure that we put on you guys would have been intolerable.
Yeah. You couldn't.
But with the best will in the world, you know. So it is interesting. So you're one of the few people who have had a unique experience of driving down that driveway twice.
Twice.
With that at your back.
Yeah.
What did it feel like the second time?
I was sad to see it go. I was hoping they'd do something with the building. I don't think the bishops had thought it through, to be honest. They hadn't thought, well, we'll close it. And they're left with this building. What do we do? And 38 years later, they still don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't think they I think they missed an opportunity at one point. Stackis had a place over in Cults that burnt down, and if they decided in '83, they could probably have got Stackis to take it over in '86.
Yeah, it was almost as if the can was kicked down the road a wee bit, wasn't it? And almost a fear to make the well, who knows? We're not in the room, you don't know why decisions are made and not made.
We got another year out of it, and then bang.
Aye.
It was away. It just had gone.
Yeah. And I guess as we kind of move towards a conclusion just now, that what if anything would you change? Or would you have changed? What just wasn't right?
I don't know what you could say. What wasn't right? I think there was opportunities missed when it was when they decided to close it. I think they did the best they could. I think the guys who were there when it closed had one heck of a year to keep the morale up, and then suddenly feeling on that last Parents' Day when you left, and we were still sitting there that night, we didn't know what to do.
Dumbstruck.
Absolutely, We had the Parents' Day, we had the Mass, and the place was empty by 4 o'clock.
That's right.
And we were just left with this massive big place, and what do we do with it?
How long did you stay after?
A month, roughly.
A month, aye.
Yeah.
God, it must have been like rattling about in a
We were rattling
empty
about,
box.
moving stuff, getting our own stuff put together, talking to the bishops, talking to Tom Winning, what do we want to do after this? Please do not send us into schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't send us into schools.
Just talking about that last year and the
Do you want
challenge.
to know where
it was.
we all went?
Where'd you go?
Bob Hill went to Glasgow University as chaplain.
Right.
Michael Woodford went to St Margaret Mary's in Castlemilk as chaplain. And I went to St Pat's in Dumbarton as chaplain. And I went in there and I looked around the school and I said, you'll be closed in a year.
And was it?
2 years and it was amalgamated with Notre Dame.
Yeah, bitter experience. I just wanted to kind of record something because it's my understanding you're talking about the challenge of the last year that you all had as a staff, keeping us all on track. Because I can mind, we wobbled. We wobbled, as soon as the decision was announced, and you knew all before us, but it would have been dead easy for everything to go off the rails. But I believe it's a matter of record that the attainment that year was just as good as any other year, if not better, which is an absolute credit to the staff under Monsignor McIntyre's leadership as well. So we could see him hurting, and particularly you could tell he took it really badly.
Oh yeah,
and for good reason, I'm quite sure. Just as we wrap up, is there anything that we've missed that you would have wanted to share?
Oh really?
Any anecdotes, any funny staff moments that the students would never have seen?
Oh yeah.
Particularly any that involved Big Paddy Hennessy, given he was our form teacher, and I'm pretty sure he was right for that.
Yeah. Oh, the thing was like that. Yeah. Oh, Paddy used to sit at table and sort of drive us all the way Paddy talks. There's certain anyway. I was talking about something silly. About the different different things that people talk about, and they was, talking about, rubbish, refuse, and I was talking the West Coast, which he knew from like me. Rubbish, and the word midden came up. It's a strange word, But we go to the midden, you go to the midden, the back of the tenements. And then Paddy turned and said to Keith O'Brien, Keith, what's the word for a midden on the East Coast? I said, Edinburgh. And everything had gone quiet. I was sitting at the bottom of the table. I said Edinburgh. Keith's face just, oh boy, where am I going next?
You said to the party,
I was supposed to be whispering it to Paddy.
I tell you what, if we were to script how this was going to end, that's what it would have been.
Yes.
with the greatest of respect to all our Edinburgh Blairentians. Well, listen, two things. Thank you for your time today.
No problem.
But on behalf of all the students who benefited from your input, thank you most sincerely, personally and as a group. You were, I don't want to embarrass you, you were seen as one of the sound profs who absolutely understood our challenges at the same time as trying to deal with your own challenges and having to deal with us as well, and eternally grateful to you and all of the staff. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It took me using my dice and my hire in good grace.
Yes.
And you moved me from being somebody who'd gone to a multiple choice maths exam, saying, right, don't know the answer, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, to somebody who's a kind of an educated guess, Thank you.
My one sort of joy after I had left was doing the chaplaincy. Was the first higher maths after that. I was very lucky that everybody was in doing the exam. I was in St Pat's at the time, and the invigilator gave me a copy of the paper, and I was doing it in the staff room, just going through it. Got to the last question. This is impossible. Took it to the principal teacher of maths and said, see that last question, that's impossible. No, it's not. He did. Let's go over and see. Let's go and see Dr. McLaughlin in Notre Dame. She was the principal of maths. That is impossible.
Wow. I have a vague memory of an absolute hoo-ha about a maths paper. Maybe that was it.
There was one line in it that made it impossible.
Aye.
And it was, if this line is perpendicular to that line, it changed it from a positive to a negative, and as soon as it became negative, the whole question was impossible.
There you go. You didn't even have to phone your sister up.
I didn't. She phoned me.
You said, did you see that question?
Yeah, did you see that? Did you see that question? I said, yes. We've discussed it. We've discussed it. The Trinity over here discussed it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.